Hey, how you doing? Let's do it to it. We're going to be going over some how to reassess your chess. I promised you we would, and we will get going on that. Let's make sure we're doing this right. Let's make sure I have this. Let me see really quick. Just give me a sec. I appreciate your patience with this. Just gotta see if this game has already we've already put this game in. If we have, then I know. Yeah, 2 equals 6. I could check really quick by doing this one thing, and I could see the end move. So 27. Let me see. I'll shift 22. Nope. Hold on, let me see some. Oh, I see why. Yeah, he actually, yeah, 27, that's right. F4, that is right. So we are on to the next one. We're going to be able to do another one. It's going to be a Shirov game. I'm looking forward to this. This should be interesting. Shirov is a really tactical player. If you like a wild player that loves tactics, Shirov's your best bet. My teacher told me though, if you're first starting out though, you want to go with a player more like Wesley So, Caruana, or Magnus, those type of players. Shirov is, if you want to take it to the next level, that's Shirov. It's when you've mastered a lot of the basics of chess, and then you're ready to go to more like what Jeremy Silman is talking about. Oops. The imbalances. Okay. So you want to build a good foundation before, like that's when a lot of when you buy a house, you want to make sure the foundation that your house is built on is strong. That's why we build our foundation on the Rock of Ages. So let's, and of course we know who that is. That's Jesus Christ. Got to give credit where credit's due, and that's the truth. Right, there we go. So we're going into a knight variation. Oh, we're doing a Ruy Lopez. Yes. So they're doing the Columbus variation. There's the exchange variation here. And then you play more towards positional attacking. And then sometimes castles, something like that. And yeah, but this is more of the Columbus variation. Knight f6, castles, and then bishop e7. Of course, you see that this is a mistake because rook here, and then when you come back, you first take here, there, and then kerplunk. And then the bishop, you can't castle, so basically you're gonna have to play bishop here. You play knight up. Now you castle, but then, and that's a problem. So that's why they usually block first. Now this is on pre. This pawn is on pre. I think it's still playable. That's why rook e1 is played. I'm thinking if you play it here, I'm thinking it's still okay. Then they castle. Bishop takes. Pawn takes. Knight takes. So they really can't castle at this moment. So you'd have to support here. And you'd probably want to try to support the castles. And then bishop, this is your chance to double the pawns. He does protect these two spots, so which are vital outposts. But this does become a weak point. And then you just develop a knight, and if they play that, you could just retreat back to d2. And now this is a gaping hole. So if they come there, come in, takes. You wanted to keep the solidity of, and then potentially pushing. So if that, you've actually taken away the doubling of the pawns. You do have the bishop, close game, and so this would be more likely a good game. Now you can move your bishop out, trade off a pair of bishops. And if they play there, now you've got bishop the same color. You just move there. You can't bring the queen in, so you don't really have to worry. So I don't think I'd move my king. Well, maybe you would want to. I think I would move my king, because I want to get my rook here. So g6 is an interesting move. It does create a gaping hole, but if you can't take advantage of it, then black has an interesting move of f4 or f5. But this is why they play rook e1. So if they wanted to, you could actually take, I'm thinking, and then win here. But then you win there. Then he wins there. Here. Comes back. Comes back. So you are playing against this. Castles, and have you really accomplished much? I am not sure. I'm not sure if it's enough. b5. Let's see what the engine said would be the best, because this is interesting. What does it say about bishop takes? Okay, after takes, what if we take there? About equal. It's a drawn position. So if you want to go down a drawn line, that's about and then castles. c3. This is getting ready for, if the knight were to come here, the bishop could actually pocket itself right there and then play d4. d5, d4, e takes, d, he takes d5. Interesting, d5, huh? 94. So he takes d. And then bishop g4. Bishop f5 is Jeremy Stone more safer choice. This is more of like an attacker's choice. Knight c3. Bishop takes f. Queen takes. Oops, actually queen takes is a blunder. Pawn takes. If queen were to take, the reason it's a mistake, this would be a mistake here, is because of this move here. Now you get to win the bishop pair back, and it's a fork. This way you're attacking the knight. So knight takes c, and then c takes, or b takes c, hoping for a pawn avalanche basically here and there, and then there, getting everything in its power. f5, freezing the f pawn, the passed e pawn isn't at the moment a worry for black. King h1. The idea is to bring the rook over, take scope with here. Knight e5. Rook g1. Queen d7. Queen e2. Just really confused. I wonder why that. Ah, it must be there. Ah, now I see why. I see why this is right. Because now what they're wanting to do is, I'll show you. Let's say they play this here, right? What now you could do is play here. After the rook comes up, you have this fork, and it's protected by the queen. Do you see how they think tactical, like 3 moves out? If you blunder or do that, that's a mistake, because then you could play there and you're gonna lose a pawn, maybe even a piece. So there, and then you have a fork, and you lose a piece for a pawn. Bishop e6. You see why he played e6. You see now why he played e6. Was to stop that idea. Bishop g5. But now if the bishop were to take, the rook would take, and then rook a g1, and you would have a tremendous attack happening here. c6. Unlike the game that we played, remember the 1830, let me see, I want to make sure, 1834 game. The position demands that white attack on the king side. Of course, that's good. That's good news for Shirov, who is one of the finest attacking players on earth. That is true. Yeah. However, white would have to go for the kingside attack, even if he was ultimately a positional player. Like Ulf Anderson, he's a position player. At the risk of repeating myself for 1,000 times, that's what Jeremy Stone says, you have to do what the position wants you to do. You have to do what the position wants you to do. If you're a positional player, you have to sometimes, when the position says attack, 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 you have to attack the king side. you may want to build up, you may want to make your pieces more effective, but sometimes you have to go against how comfortable you are, and that's why we talked a little bit. I think it was like maybe a week ago on one of our on one of our classes here, that one player, actually, I think it was the person who wrote. Let me get his name right. Nick Deferman. Nick Deferman was, I believe he was a E4 player. No, an E5 player, and we were talking about openings in here, and he said that he had to play D4 because his coach told him you want to be comfortable with with the positional side of D4 pawn push, and you want to be comfortable with the tactical side of E4. And so when Nick DeFurk actually came back with, after basically studying and mastering the D4 pawn moves and openings position like that, he went back to his E4 one moves that he likes for tactics. He said he was actually a stronger E4 player. We talked about it as when Rocky was facing Apollo Creed in number 2. Rocky was facing in Rocky 2, that Mickey had him basically he's a left-handed fighter. He had him work on his right hand so that at certain points, if he needed to, he could fight right-handed, which would throw Apollo off balance, because he was training to fight a left-handed fighter, boxer. But if you can switch both hands, you'll be able to throw your opponent off, and you'll find that you'll improve as a player because you'll be balanced at that point. You won't be they won't expect you to be coming. They'll think your style may be attacking, but they'll be like, he's playing this one move. There was a game, I think it was game 6, I believe, when Bobby Fischer was facing Spassky in Iceland. He played a positional, I believe it was the English opening. And what happened was Boris Spassky's team did not train Boris for Bobby playing the English, and he was in unknown territory. And that was actually the idea that Bobby won. That was like one of the most beautiful world championship games. It was just like so beautiful, and I believe Boris Spassky actually stood up on game 6 and clapped. So yeah, just a little bit of history, because you know what, you got to bring life to chess, and that's why Jeremy Silman says the board will tell you what to play. There you go. Okay, we will get back now into our the fun of the moves. Okay, of course, Shirov deliberately played this opening variation in hope of reaching this kind of a position that suits his style very well. Why does White have to attack here? Basically, Jeremy Stillman's asking the question, to the audience. Why does White have to attack here? He stands worse on the queen side, and the center is more or less locked. So when the center is more or less locked, you're gonna be playing on the wings. And remember, we talked about, my teacher told me that pawns are like little pointer fingers, and they'll actually point where the pawn points is where you have more space, and where you have more space is usually where you want to attack. That only leaves the king side, so playing there is, he says, a no-brainer. Of course, other small details like the e5 pawn influencing the king side, and the open g file, beautiful, as even though it's doubled pawns, it allows more attack on g7. A road to black's king only strengthens one's basically resolution to throw everything you have at the monarch at all costs. Basically, it was a international master, Andrew Martin, says you throw everything in the kitchen sink at it, and that's basically what you're doing here. You're throwing all your pieces in the kitchen sink at the king, because you have a rook here, you have a pawn here, you have a bishop here, and if you can get this in, you'll eventually bring a queen in over to h5, and if allotted, you might even be able to double rooks, and you'll have every piece. And eventually this bishop, if need be, Could even slip down to c2, and when this, if the pawn here pushes, then the h7 pawn ends up becoming a weakness. It's just a beautiful position, and Shirov is like the attacker's attacker, and so this is a position of his style. Okay, bishop c2 was played because he doesn't want to trade pieces. When you have a cramp on one side of the board, you want to keep that cramp up. An easy way to make black's knight is an easy move to make. Oh, that was funny. I forgot one word. An easy move to make black's knight is more far away. Well, let me hold on. I gotta make sure that just doesn't sound right. An easy move to make, and then there's a dash. Black's knight is far away from basically the fight. While the king and the light squared bishop can join in the fight, basically in the fray from a distance. Thus, why allow black to swap and deprive the white army of a new recruit? Basically, yeah, I had to emphasize the reading, otherwise it didn't sound correct. So what he's saying is this knight over here, black's knight over here, is basically a really bad piece. It's going to be almost, let's see, how many moves would it take to get it back in the fight? It would take it actually 3 moves to get it back over to the king side, where the bishop in 1 move could actually be attacking the king side. So why give up a good bishop for a bad knight? And that's what was going through his mind. And so rook a7. This move here is so that if bishop would go to a6, the bishop could retreat back. So if this bishop went to a6, the bishop would retreat back, and this rook here would be defending this pawn. But he plays f4 here because we want to now bring the queen in. This locks the pawn on a light square, which can be then a weakness and a target for the light squared bishop. The majority, if you notice, of the pawns for black are on light squares, which is actually really good for white, because if it comes down to the bishops of opposite color, if you could trade this bishop off for that bishop, the dark square bishops come off the board, the knight will become very bad. And let's say the queens and the other 2 rooks come off, this bishop is superior to the knight. So you always have to be thinking endgame when you're playing. So that's just one thing you have to keep in your forefront. He's moving his king off, which is actually a pretty wise idea for black to get it off the file. And then queen h5, but this allows queen h5 to come in. And now a lot of stuff's going to be happening on the G file. A lot of attack. You're going to love that. Bishop a3. Black's idea is trying to get here and fork the 2 pawns. If bishop takes g5, rook takes g5, g6, queen h6, rook g7, rook ag1, rook ff7, and then h4, and Harry becomes a hero again. He's becomes the star player of the group. Rook g3. This does a double job. It protects the pawn if the bishop wants to come here, and allows this rook to come over. So this pawn is protected. If the bishop comes here, this rook can just slide over, and your right is ready to go. Knight to c4, rook ag1, White's attacking moves aren't hard to find. Chess is much easier to play once you know what what the right plan is. Chess is easier once you know what the right plan is. Now he has to figure out a way to break through, though. We have to figure out a way to break through for White. Knight d2, Rook h3. That's going for the h pawn. There's no way, sharp or shape or form, but highly effective. This is highly effective nevertheless. Notice how every white piece is participating in the attack. A real team effort. That's what he says. Queen g8 guards here. f3. This is actually cementing the knight. The knight can't now go here, and the knight can't go here. So there is no way. The knight actually has to retreat out if it wants to get anything going. Stronger was, though, bishop to f6. Bishop f6 was actually stronger. Knight e4, but that's not Shirov's style. And then bishop takes e, d takes e, and h to g8 or g3. c4 is also uncomfortable as well. This is a very uncomfortable position. So it's not like that's it's not playable if you're wondering about that. Here. e6. Rotates f. Queen. Huh? What did I miss here? Hold on, I missed something. Bishop f6. There. Takes. Okay. It's saying that rotates f6. Or queen takes f6. Not sure how that's going to happen. H3. Look, f7. I'm not sure. This is interesting. Huh. Maybe it has something to do with this. We'll have this. And then here. Let's do that. Queen f8. Queen e5. There we go. We'll just have this, because I think that I'm not sure how they were expecting to get to the other thing. That's okay though. We'll figure it out later. Okay. F3. Knight has to go back. Bishop d3. Knight b2. Bishop b1. Knight c4. Bishop f6. Knight d6. Bishop e7. I missed a move somewhere here. I appreciate your patience on this. Hold on. There's something altogether awry here. Let me go back through this. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Patience here. Spade. Got it. Knight. Castle is there. Perfect. So far so good. Rook e1. b5. There. Castles. c3. d5. d4. E takes d. Perfect. e5. Knight d4. C takes. Bishop g4. Knight c3. Bishop takes. Takes. Knight takes. Bishop takes. King f5, king h1, knight e3, rook g1. We talked about this. There. e6, good. Bishop c5, g5, c3, bishop c2, rook a7, f, king h8. Queen h5, bishop a3, rook g3, knight, rook g1, queen f. Ah, here we go. This is the problem right here. Queen h4. In most situations, the queen views as a knockout. The defender is usually delighted to make the trade, so white wisely avoids trading. Knight d2. Ah. Knight d2. That now we're making more sense here. Now queen g8, and then f3. But remember, now it makes more sense with this move here. I knew we had missed something. So takes. There we go. F7. Now E. Or takes. Queen takes. Queen F8. And then Queen E5. Now we're ready. Now we're good. Okay. Knight here. Knight bishop there. Knight D2. Or B2. Not D2. Goes back. Knight C. Bishop F. Knight D6. Tactical idea. bishop there. Rook takes, queen takes, and the opponent resigned here. If this were to be played here, I'm thinking the rook takes, queen takes, 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 king takes, takes, takes. So it's not winning. So that's why I played there. So now if he played here, this pawn move is winning, because it's protected by the bishop. Divides up the army. So that's interesting, huh? That's why he took there. White played for an attacking position, the kind of position that best suits his style. Right from the opening, he acquired it, achieved it, and then he devoted all his energy into making the attack crash through. This blend of opening choice and style, and the opening and the middle game, and if necessary, to the end game, follows through all in perfect balance with chess strengths and tastes. Is an extremely important if you want to basically eke every inch of what you put the information or put your strength into. If you want to take and make it so that all of your efforts, basically you're emphasizing everything that you put into it. You're getting every drop. If you think of a sponge, squeezing that sponge and getting all the water out of it, that's basically what the position. You've built up that sponge so that you can use the water to maybe wash something or something, but you have built it up. And now it's time for you to clean up the surface, which is a victory. And he employed it. Here's a quick example of such a situation from the position of a positional player's point of view. We have seen we seem to have had a taste of an attacking example in this game. White plays a line that's designed to give him a tiny positional edge based on more space and queenside majority and queenside pawn majority. White deliberately enters into this opening, and black also deliberately allows it, expecting to draw. Turns the slight plus into something more substantial in the queenless middle game, and then turns these tiny things into victory in the end game. So we're going to get to see an end game. See how we're doing on time. Perfect. We'll do one more. This is fun. Let me get a drink. This is actually a Jeremy Silman one, so this is his own game, which is really cool. It's especially fun when you can show it from your own perspective. Let's see who he's facing. Oops, I forgot to ask. Perfect. Oops, 9. Okay, let's do it. D4. e6, c4, knight c here. This is c3, bishop b4, queen c2, c5, c takes d, castles, a3, bishop takes, oh, not that, here, knight f3, bishop g5, knight d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, e3, takes, pawn takes, queen takes, queen d2, queen takes, king takes, and then all this is well-known theory. White center and queenside space advantage, and his centralized king allows him to look forward to a safe and pleasant grind of his and basically grind is what they're talking about, is a game where you're going to slowly but steadily win, kind of thing that would make remember the in 1834 that one McDonald, it would make him be happy in this position. He'd be really happy as a chess player. This would be more of his style. a6, rb6, b4, bishop b7, f3. This little pawn move blunts the action of the bishop on b7 and takes over the e4 square and the g4 square away from black's knight. Rook f to c8, knight to b5, knight e8, and then bishop to d3. Try to get all the pieces involved here. King f8, get the kings involved because now we're moving into an opening. H to c1. King e7, c5, and then d6. I know what you're thinking. Why not play at this point after this, play bishop takes? So I promise you get trapped. And then potentially the knight's going to come in and you're going to lose your bishop for 2 pawns. So they don't do that. d6, c takes b, a takes b, and rook takes c, bishop takes, and then a4. White still enjoys more space, and after a bit of pawn structure, tweaking, his queenside majority is about to become a passed pawn, which is nice. d5, a5, h6, king c3, b takes a, rook takes a5, rook b8. Trading only, if you trade here, you basically help white acquire their goal of playing knight here, knight into there, and then pawn pushing. Or knight here, pawn push, and then knight in, and emphasizing in there. So there's a lot of attack. So b8, rook a7, rook b, rotate, king b3, rotates a, bishop, knight takes, bishop b7, b5, and up comes the passed pawn, knight d6, king b4 to protect the pawn. It says the noose tightens all, the position tightens all over the board. King d7, king c5, bishop a8. This is, well, he says one ugly bishop for sure. b3. My knight and b pawn form a wall that prevents Black's king from getting into the queen side. The rest of the game, given without notes, remains true to the opening vision of the player. So knight b7, king not b5, but king b4, knight d8, bishop b5 check, king e7, knight c8 check, king f6, knight d6, e5, knight e8 check, king e7, knight takes g7, e takes d, knight f5 check, king e6, knight takes d4 check, king d6, knight f5 check, king e5, knight takes h6. Basically it's just demoing the position. d4, bishop e8, f5, knight h7, knight takes, bishop takes, king f4, bishop to c4, excuse me, king e3, and then h4. So far, most of the games are one-sided here. There's no real way for, even if this were to be played, we can push our pawn. We don't really have to even worry about it. We just play here, and then here. We push, bishop takes, and then up the board we go. You could take here, king takes there, and then the bishop's able to stop the pawn. But remember, that pawn is about to go, so it's not like that you can't stop both. Even if you took during that, you still can't stop it. So, but this is more precise of a play, and you're still winning. It doesn't matter. But the position actually ended at h4. When he played h4, white is winning. So we're going to read this and then call it on. This is the one thing here. So far, most of the games have been rather one-sided. At high levels, it's far more common to see one-sided fight to prove the supreme of his positional imbalance, while the other side does everything possible to prove his own in this case. We're going to go over a Magnus Carlsen game tomorrow. That'll be fun. So, what did we learn from today? We learned this one thing. If we can take away anything, play to your strengths, of course, but mostly play what the board tells you to play. So play what the board tells you to play. And I know you're thinking, wait a second, that of course play what the board tells, but we sometimes fight that. What we want to do, we sometimes have our pieces pointing at the king, and we're like, we want to do a king side attack, but in reality the position doesn't call for a king side attack. We gotta do, when the center's locked, you have to look where the pawns are pointing. Once the center gets locked up with pawns, which side is your pawns pointing on? If it's queen side, you have to go for a queen side attack, even if you don't like it. And if it's king side, you have to go to a king side attack. Even if you're a positional player, you have to do that. You have to be able to switch. And we used the Rocky example of Apollo Creed in Apollo Creed 2, or Rocky 2, how Rocky had to learn to fight right-handed and left-handed. And that's what sometimes you have to do. You have to learn to be positional. You have to learn to be an attacker. That's why you have to understand what the board calls for. You have to learn the imbalances, and you'll get better as a chess player. Okay, that's a pretty good wrap-up. I think that was good of what we just went over. And I wanted to thank you for logging on, participating. You know what we have to do? Just remember, take what you know from Bruce Lee's, what he says, take what you know from this information, be able to apply it to the position at hand, and learn to be both positional and attacking. Just, you know what, work. If you're a E5 player or E4 player, learn to be a D4 player. Just practice. I know it's out of your comfort zone, but just do it. But remember, in the end, with these times that we're going through in the world, and what a lot of concern and fear, we could rely on one person to get us through this, and with courage, and his name is Jesus Christ. And if you receive him as Lord and Savior, that fear, you're still going to have some fear, but the understanding that the Lord says he hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of love, peace, and a sound mind. So we have to always remember that he's given us the ability to be calm in the middle of a storm, and that's what we need. So just take that into consideration. At eternity also is a very long time. Remember though, what the Team Chess Cruncher motto is about is we hang up our coats, we hang up our hats, we sit down and study when most won't. Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says to the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless. I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. And Lord willing, I'll be back on, and we'll go over the Magnus Carlsen game and have some fun tomorrow again. And remember what Hannibal Smith says, even inside of what looks like a random position, we've learned that we can navigate through. And when we find the plan, we get to say, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, 2 thumbs up, hoorah, be blessed, keep pushing forward, keep the faith, and honor the Lord Jesus with the gifts that he's given you. And I will see you tomorrow, Team Chess Cruncher. Be blessed. Bye-bye, Team Chess Cruncher. Hoorah.